everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review. And today's review is in association with tformers.com, your #1 news source for everything Transformers. And for today's review, we're going to be taking a look at the new Transformers Titan Series Combiner Wars Devastator figure. Now this is the San Diego Comic-Con version, so that is a little bit different than the regular version that's being released in stores, which actually we've heard reports have started to show up at Toys R Us stores. But this is the version that'll be available next week to convention goers and then soon after on the HasbroToyShop.com website. So this version comes packaged in this huge box, and on the front it's got a slip cover on it, and on the front is the Devastator's head, and the eyes are a red foil material, and then basically he's got scuff marks and everything all over it. But very cool looking packaging and very big. This thing is very big. The thing measures about 20 inches in height and 14 inches, about 14, maybe a little over 14 inches in width. So the thing is definitely big. Okay, and so you lift the slip cover off, and this is the box that it's actually packaged in. It's made to look like a bulldozer, you know, Constructicon neon green colors. You've got the Transformer Generations logo, and on the side you've got the Decepticon logo. On the back we have a little bio for Devastator. It's kind of interesting. I haven't been reading the IDW comics, so I don't know. You know, this doesn't really sound like the Devastator. I don't remember Devastator having multiple voices in his head, but it kind of makes sense, I guess, for a combiner. So, very interesting. And then it tells us, prepare to meet your doom. Nothing can withstand the might of Devastator, which is a quote from the cartoon. And down below here, it tells us the contents of the box. So, the box opens up. Again, this is kind of done as like a bulldozer, so the front part of the box looks like, you know, the shovel part of a bulldozer. And so it opens up and you've got the figure clearly displayed in the big window box. So if you don't want to open up and take your figure out, you can just have it kind of displayed like that if you wanted to. You've got some artwork down here in the corner, says Combiner Wars. It's a very cool packaging, which is typical for a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. This is not the same kind of packaging that the regular version will come with. Okay, so let's get this figure open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at Devastator outside of the packaging. And first of all, I just want to say a big thanks to Hasbro for sending this out to us. I was definitely going to pick this up next week at Comic-Con, but fortunately Hasbro saved me a little bit of trouble. So thanks again for them for sending this out and making this review possible. So the figure is definitely big. It dwarfs the other combiners like Superion and Menasor that have recently been released, as you can see here. So this one is definitely the biggest combiner that Hasbro's ever done. And it stands in Devastator mode. He stands just under 17.5 inches tall, right around 17.5 inches. So he's definitely big. I think the Metroplex that Hasbro did a year or so ago is taller. I don't have that figure, so I missed out on that one, so I don't have it to give you a comparison, but I do believe that one is taller. I could be wrong, but I think I remember reading that someone said that that one was taller. So I don't think it's the tallest Transformer Hasbro's ever done, but definitely the biggest combiner that they've done. So this version, this Comic-Con version, has the vac metallized pieces. So the chest plate and Mixmaster's cement spinner thing, and there's some vac metal on Scrapper as well. So that gives it some added detail. There are also, I think, some added paint applications. I haven't looked in great detail of the regular version, but it seems to me that there's some, you know, sticker details that maybe aren't on the regular version. On here, a lot of Decepticon logos throughout. you've got this one down here on Scrapper, which I think is cool. The way it came out of the box, it was actually turned this way, so it was upside down. So I don't know if that's the correct way or not, but I actually kind of like it. It turns, and I think it looks better with the Decepticon logo facing, not upside down. I like the Decepticon logo on the chest piece. Now the chest piece, like on the original toy, it pops off, and actually this breaks down into 3 different pieces. So, and the way it attaches, it's got this peg that sticks out, but that's not actually where it attaches onto Devastator. There's this little shorter black peg and that's where it attaches, and it attaches into this little hole here. So it's easier to actually remove the wings of the chest piece first before you snap it on, and then you put it on there, and then you can just stick the wing pieces in. And it stays, this chest piece so far has stayed on pretty good, so I haven't had any problems with it. Now, I will tell you that I'm not really calling this a full-on review because I just got this figure and it's a very detailed and intricate figure, so I haven't really had a whole lot of time to mess around with it. So this is more of just an overview to give you a good look at it. We'll probably be doing a more in-depth review, either myself or one of our other reviewers will probably be doing an more in-depth review of this toy in the coming days. But I definitely wanted to go on and give you a good look at the toy, an in-hand look at it. So I just want to preference that, so if I miss a detail or something, you don't get mad at me, because like I said, I've just gotten it, and it's definitely a very intricate toy, and I haven't had a lot of time to mess around with it. But overall, I would say the detail is pretty nice. The plastic on it, is very neon green, which is what I remember, the original toys. Maybe not quite as neon. I think it looks good. I like the black pieces with the hands. I think the original toy had, these were purple. So I actually like the black better. Now, one thing I want to point out is he comes with a big gun, and this breaks down into 2 pieces. He's got a trigger, and it looks like it's got a place where you're supposed to plug the gun in, kind of like with if you own the Combiner War, Superion, or Menasor, or one of those. They have the little pegs, and they actually have holes on their hands. But this one does not appear to have a hole for that. So it's just got the hand. The fingers are articulated on this. They're just one articulation point, so all the fingers are kind of stuck together, but you can move those fingers. The thumb is not articulated. The wrist you can twist. It has a swivel. But if you want him to hold the gun, basically you want to just have him close the fingers and then stick the gun in there. And it does stick in pretty tightly, though it can sometimes, I've had it fall out a couple times. So it would have been nice if they'd added that hole for this peg, I think, to hold the gun in a little bit tighter. But as it is, like I said, he holds it pretty good, but I have had him drop it a couple times. Just to give you a couple other size comparisons. So here he is next to the Combiner Wars Voyager Megatron figure. And, now one thing I gotta say, as I mentioned before, I have not been reading the IDW comics. So I can't comment on scale. I mean, obviously he's much bigger than the other combiners. So, in the cartoons, all the combiners were about the same size. And honestly, so were the toys for the most part. Maybe Devastator was a little bit bigger, but for the most part, they were about the same size. But obviously, this toy towers over the other combiners in this series, or in this line. So I don't know if in the comics or something, in these new comics, if they've made Devastator that much bigger and more powerful than the other combiners. I don't know. I mean, I like this bigger size. I think this is a much nicer toy than the other combiners, but as far as fitting in scale wise, he's a little bit out of scale with the other combiners. Okay, and real quick before I disassemble it and show you the individual pieces, we start off this. I don't know if the regular version comes packaged as Devastator or packaged in the individual components, but obviously the Comic-Con version is packaged as Devastator, so that's why we started this review off looking at it as Devastator. But I'm going to disassemble this and show you the individual parts in a minute. But before we do that, I just want to go over the articulation on this figure. So it's not too bad for a big thing. And if you're wondering, it's pretty sturdy. I haven't, you know, again, I haven't had a lot of time to mess around with it, but for the most part, I haven't had any issues with like parts falling off, you know, which was an issue with the original G1 toy. Also, Scrapper's leg or foot, you know, I remember the original G1 toy, this piece that makes the front part of his foot would become loose, and so he would have a tendency to fall over because this thing wouldn't support the weight anymore. So far, I have not had any issues with that. It looks like they've done a pretty good job with making the joints here tight. So for articulation, the head can look left and right. It really doesn't have any up or down movement. You can technically pull the head up. It's more part of the transformation than anything, but if you wanted to look up, you could pull the head up like that. But the head itself, there's no like neck, and there's no up or down articulation with this one. The arms, you can have him basically put his arms out. You have to pull up the parts, you know, by their, you know, not by the treads, but by the vehicle parts. So you can lift them up, and he can put his arms out pretty good. And that's again how you do the arms forward. You know, rotate the arms so you can. And he's got good rotation. Now, you know, this gets a little tricky moving him. You got to be careful. Like the treads pieces on these guys they're kind of loosely attached. So when you move the arms, you have a tendency to kind of move those around. Those tread pieces have a tendency to move around. He's got an elbow, so he can bend at the elbow joint. And then the wrist has a swivel, and as I mentioned, the fingers have articulation. They're all stuck, all the fingers are stuck together, but you can move the fingers back and forth. The thumb, however, you cannot. So he does have a midsection swivel, so you can have him turn at the midsection. So that's pretty nice. And you get that clicking motion when you do that. The legs, he can get forward pretty good. And can't really do them back. And he can do the splits pretty good. So good movement there. He does not appear to have much in the way. Actually, I take that. I guess consider this a knee joint. So he can bend his knee about that much. And then not a whole lot in the way of like ankle articulation. Mixmaster, you can kind of do his front cab forward and backwards, and same with Mixmaster's shovel. But for the most part, you know, the ankles, you know, these don't really have ankles, so there's no ankle articulation there. Okay, so here's a look at the Constructicons in their individual vehicle modes. Now, they're pretty simple to transform when he's in Devastator. They're pretty simple to take apart and then transform them into their vehicle modes. Now, I'm not going to do it on camera because, again, this is just kind of a brief overview to give you a look at it. We'll do a more in-depth review of this at a later date where, you know, the guys will go over the transformations and everything. But it's pretty simple to get them from Devastator into their vehicle modes. Now, Longhaul is the biggest of the group, the dump truck. He's like the centerpiece for Devastator, so they've made him, he's a little bit bigger than the others. He also is able to store the weapon parts, the chest piece and the gun and Devastator's hands. You're able to store those on Longhaul in vehicle mode. So like the chest piece, the middle piece of the chest piece, it just clips on. There's a little peg here and there's a hole in the top here, and you just plug it in and it kind of acts as a gun. Devastator's hands can be turned into basically missile launchers. So you just kind of flip the hand up or flip it closed, and there's a little peg, and you just pull it out, and there's a hole in the back here, and you just plug it in. The wings, there's a little slide mechanism on the back, and you just slide the wings in from the chest piece. And then Devastator's gun, it breaks down into two parts. So There's a little clip here where you can plug the big piece in, and then there's a smaller hole, which is actually kind of tight. There's a small hole, and you can plug that one in. So Longhaul, as I said, is the biggest. His dump truck doesn't actually lift up or anything, so he doesn't have like dumping features. The wheels are hard plastic, and the undercarriage actually on Longhaul kind of sticks out on the bottom, so he doesn't actually really, the wheels don't really roll very well, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure I've got it transformed right, so I think it's just this undercarriage piece just kind of sticks out low enough that it kind of lifts the wheels off the ground. So it doesn't look too bad, but you know, when you're having them drive, the wheels aren't going to really turn much. Mixmaster, his wheels do work, which is good. He's actually, they've kind of reversed the front. This is kind of backwards though from the original toy as I remember it. So you know, this is a little bit different. His vehicle mode's a little bit different than the original G1 toy. As I said before, this cement tank doesn't actually turn or anything. He's got the little steam pipes or smokestacks, gas tank, so pretty decent detail. He's got a little ladder to go up to the top of the truck. He's got his Decepticon logo off on the top on the corner there, which is kind of covered by the cement tank, but you can still make it out. He's got the purple windows. So again, overall, you know, not too bad looking. Scrapper again, he's got the little ladders that take him up to the driver's seat. He's got the purple windows. His Decepticon logo's on the top. His wheels, for the most part, roll. He's got the treads on his wheels. He's got some vac metal there in the middle of the vehicle. The purple windows. His shovel, he's got, you know, the articulation here, so it lifts up, and he's also got a middle articulation joint, so you can kind of like simulate him digging stuff, which is nice. Hook's wheels, kind of like Longhauls. His undercarriage kind of lifts the wheels up, especially up the top here, so it doesn't roll as well. Got the purple windows. His Decepticon logo's on the top. His hook, it lifts up. It doesn't have any kind of extension. The hook itself doesn't really move or anything. It's just a long plastic piece, but it does lift up. It does not turn at the back though. I remember, I think the original toy, you could turn it here, and it does not turn. Bone Crusher, green treads. Treads don't actually, you know, move or anything on these. Purple windows. I like the little vents that they've sculpted on here. That looks good. He's got some details. That's more for his robot mode with this Decepticon symbol. But his shovel, he does have the Decepticon logo in his shovel, and the shovel does move up and down. And then finally, Scavenger. He's again got like the vents sculpted on, which is nice. He's got purple treads. Again, they don't actually move or anything. He's got the little Decepticon logo on the front under his window, purple windows. His arm, you can move it in two places, so that's nice, and he's got the up and down movement. The actual shovel part itself does not have any articulation to it though. Okay, so here's a look at the Constructicons in their robot modes, and I think for the most part they look pretty good. I do have a few complaints with some of them, and we'll go over it as we look at each one. But I wanted to give you a group shot of all of them. Now, my biggest complaint about the robot modes for these guys is we don't get their individual signature weapons like with the G1 toys. You can, you know, take the Devastator pieces and convert them into weapons, but I think for the most part, most of them look kind of silly, especially like the rocket launchers as guns. So I don't like that we don't get like their individual blasters like the original G1 toys. I think we should have definitely gotten those as accessories for the individual robots. Other than that, though, like I said, for the most part, I think they look good. I like the head sculpts on all of them. I think those come out looking really good. And the details for each of them are pretty good for the most part. Now, probably my least favorite in robot mode is Longhaul. He just looks very stout. I don't know, kind of like a chubby Decepticon. So, I mean, I understand, you know, he's the biggest because he kind of bears the weight of Devastator and everything. So I understand it, but I think he looks probably the least of my favorite. And he's also got the least mobility as far as moving arms and legs and stuff. So he's probably my least favorite in the robot mode. We'll start off looking at Scrapper, the team leader. And again, I'm not going to go over the transformations on these in this video, and the directions, at least on the Comic Con version, don't really go over whose weapon belongs to who, so I've just kind of matched them up the best I could. This is the middle piece, the shield for Devastator, the middle piece, and it kind of looks like a shield slash blaster, so I give it to, you know, the Scrapper, who's I've always viewed as the leader of the Constructicons. So again, you know, you may match them up. You know, I don't know if there is a correct matchup for weapons. You can pretty much match them up with however you want. So this Scrapper, I think, is pretty good for the most part. He's got okay movement. He can look left and right. He doesn't have any up or down movement with the head. Most of these do not. You know, he can get his arms forward and he can get it out pretty good. He does not, however, have a shoulder or an elbow joint, which is a little disappointing, so you can't bend at the elbow on this one. He does have a swivel at the elbow, but no bending at the elbow. So that's probably the most disappointing with him for articulation. No, you can kind of move the wrist part of the transformation, but there's no swivel or anything. Also, no midsection swivel or anything. He can do the splits. He can get his leg forward good. He's got pretty good bending at the knee, and the ankles really don't have much movement other than as part of the transformation. Okay, and for size, Scrapper stands, if you count to the tip of his shovel, just under 8 inches tall. If you count to his head, then it's more like 7.5 inches. And just for some size comparisons, here he is next to one of the Combiner War Stunticons. And you can see, you know, this is considered a Voyager class transformer, so he is taller than the individual parts for the other combiners. And then just for one more comparison, here he is next to Megatron. That Combiner's War Megatron. Okay, next up is Longhaul, and as I said before, this is probably my least favorite in the robot modes. He just looks a little bit too kind of bulky and stout. Which, I mean, it kind of fits, I guess, the character, but it just, for movement and things like that, it just, you know, it's not that great. So I've given him one of the rocket launchers. It seems to kind of fit the character profile. But again, you can match up weapons however you want. Now, he doesn't have very good arm movement. Again, no bending at the elbow. You can do the lower arms outwards, but that doesn't really do a whole lot. You can't really do the arms out either with the way it's constructed. He does have good rotation at the arm. The head, again, you can turn left and right, but no real, you know, up or down movement with this one. And then the legs are very short. You can kind of do them forward a little bit, and he's got some bending at the knee, but that's about it. You can also, I mean, he can do the splits, I guess, so. But very short legs on this one. I think that's what kind of throws it off the most for me is the short legs. And he stands, this one stands, well, if you count to the top of his head, is just about at 8 inches. Next up is Mixmaster, and he looks okay for the most part. Again, he has the vac metallized parts on his chest and at his waist, so that looks pretty good. Now, the thing I probably don't like about him is from behind, you know, with his cement tank, it kind of sticks out almost like a tail. So it can act almost as like a third leg, but it looks a little funny from behind. Otherwise, from the front, I think it looks good. His head, he's got the guns on the top of his head just like the old toy. It's not removable like the old toy, and it's all just green. I think it would have been nice if maybe they had made this piece silver like the old toy, but as it is, it's just the green plastic. And the head, you can turn to the left and the right. Again, not a whole lot of, it has a little bit of up and down movement, but it doesn't really do him any good. No midsection articulation. Arms, you can kind of get out, and I kind of pop the head off a little bit. but for the most part, you know, if you try and do the arms out, it looks a little funny. He's got rotation at the arm. He does have an elbow joint, so he can bend his lower arm, so that's nice. No real wrist articulation on these. He does have, you can swivel at the lower arm though. No, as I said, no midsection articulation, no waist swivel or anything. He can do the splits good, and he can get his leg forward good, and he's got good bending at the leg. No real ankle articulation other than, you know, you can kind of move the foot due to the transformation, but it doesn't really help with posing or anything. So Bone Crusher here, I've given him the upper larger portion of Devastator's gun for his weapon, and it just, that peg, that smaller peg just fits into the hand. So now I have some issues with this one for the transformation, and I don't know if this is just mine or if this is going to be a problem on all of them. But with the way you transform it, you have these two pieces that kind of form his crotch, and they're supposed to clamp together. But on mine, they don't stay clamped, so they're constantly, whenever you're moving the legs, are coming apart there at the crotch piece. And so it's very annoying getting him to, when you're trying to stand him and pose him and stuff. So again, that may just be a defect with mine, you know, because that crotch, those two crotch pieces are supposed to clamp together, but on mine they just don't stay clamped, and so they're always coming apart. So very annoying on mine. Hopefully that won't be an issue with all of them though. I like the detail on his chest with the Decepticon logo and the sculpted vents and everything. I like his head sculpt. He can look left and right, and no real up or down movement. Now you have to kind of be careful because his shovel piece can kind of lift up and kind of starts to cover his head, so you want to make sure that you kind of push that down as much as possible. He's got, he can get his arms out all the way, and he's got good rotation at the arm. He does have an elbow joint, which is nice. No wrist articulation on this one. Does have swivel at the elbow though. No midsection waist swivel or anything like that. And again, you've got this crotch piece on mine that kind of comes apart. He can do the splits good, and he can get his leg forward good and back, and he's got kind of bending at the, it's more at the thigh than at an actual knee, but you can kind of bend it there if you want. And then the feet, I just popped it out. Really no articulation with the feet on this one. Hook looks very, I like Hook. I think the look of him, the details are nice. Again, he has the vac metal eyes on the chest, the Decepticon logo. I like his head sculpt. He can look left and right. Has a little bit of up and down movement, but again, it really doesn't do him any good. I've given him the lower part of Devastator's gun for his weapon. I think Hook had a long rifle. I can't remember if that was Hook's or Longhauls, but I went on and gave him the lower part of Devastator's rifle for his weapon. Yeah, that's about as much as you can get the arms out on this one because the wheels hit the upper part, and he can't really rotate without the plastic bumping into that piece. You can kind of get it, so, but it does kind of rub against this upper plastic piece when you rotate the arms. He does have elbow joints, so he can move his arm, and he's got the swivel there at the elbow. No real wrist articulation on this one. No waist articulation. None of these I don't think have any kind of waist swivel or anything, unfortunately. Legs are attached with ball joints, so you can get the legs out. He's got good, you can get the legs forward and back. He's got a knee joint, but that's about as much as he can bend his knee. And then he has some up and down movement with the feet. And his hook, you know, you can actually take this off if you want to, but it kind of acts as a third leg. And finally, here's a look at Scavenger. I've given him the other rocket launcher. And I think he looks probably, he's one of the better looking robots or one of the better looking transformers in robot mode. I like his head sculpt. He's got the silver chest plate, gold or done in metallic silver, which looks good, and it's got some nice sculpting with the yellow vents and the little red dots. So I like that, and the Decepticon logo. And I like the little vents sculpted up here on his upper chest and on his lower arms. And he's got the stickers. So overall, I think the detail looks good. I like the orange treads as part of his legs. They don't look quite as good. The orange treads don't look as good in robot mode, but I do like them as his legs. Articulation, he can look left and right with the head, a little bit of up and down movement, but not a whole lot. Arms are attached with ball joints, so he can get his arm out good, and he's got good rotation at the arm. He does have an elbow joint, so he can bend at the arm, and he has the swivel there at the elbow. And then no wrist articulation on this one, no midsection articulation. He can get his legs out. He's got good forward motion, good back motion. The knee, he can bend his knee about that much, and then really no ankle articulation on this one. And then his arm just kind of folds up in the back and stays out of the way. So that's my review. Overall, I am pretty happy with this toy. I definitely like it better as Devastator as opposed to the individual components. There are some drawbacks with the individual components in both robot and vehicle mode. Things like not having their signature weapons. I think the Devastator weapons look kind of silly with them in individual robot modes, so I'm not terribly happy with that. That's probably my biggest complaint overall with the toy. It would have been nice if we gotten those individual weapons. Some of them in their vehicle modes, the wheels, because the undercarriages kind of stick out, so it looks a little funny. Not terrible or anything, but, like I said, just some minor complaints with them in the individual modes. But in Devastator mode, I think this is truly an awesome toy. It's definitely the nicest combiner I've seen Hasbro do in a long, long time. Much nicer than like the Menasor and the Superion from the Combiner Wars. Just the detail and obviously the size and everything I just think is really nice on this one. Now I don't have like any third-party Devastator toys or anything like that, and I know Takara's got a version which maybe has some improvements over the Hasbro version. But overall I would say this is a very nice toy. Definitely like the vac metal look on it, so that to me kind of makes it better. So if you have a choice between the two, the regular version and the con version, then I would definitely recommend the con version. So that's my review. We'll have, like I said, we'll have a more in-depth review or go over the actual transformations, which for the most part are pretty simple for an intricate toy like this. I did have, once I had them into the individual vehicles and everything, it was a little tricky getting him back into Devastator just because there's little connecting points that you got to make sure that you get, or otherwise he has a tendency to fall over. But for the most part, for a big toy like this with all the transformations and everything, it's very simple, so no real complaints there. So this will be available at San Diego Comic-Con next week, and then there at least should be a limited number available after the convention at HasbroToyShop.com. Be sure to tune in to Transformers and all the sites next week as we kick off our San Diego Comic-Con coverage. Coverage begins on July 7th. Wednesday is preview night, so we'll be bringing you coverage as it happens, so be sure to tune into that. tformers.com, marvelousnews.com, JediInsider.com, and of course ToyNewsEye.com. And we'll have a full gallery of images of this exclusive over at tformers.com, so there'll be a link in the description below for that. And as always, please leave a comment, let us know what you think. If you're so inclined, please like the video, and until next time, I'll catch you later.